Kitty, hey. Hello, universe, of which my cat just became a direct participant. What you doing out here? How goes it? Universal delusion of massive and yet, so worthwhile creation. I do enjoy the ride. And I can't promise in this episode there won't be some blubbering, and not on the cat's part or the dog's part, who currently is on my left. What up, Bubba? Kitty, what are you doing out here? Good to see ya. Cat making a guest appearance. Must be episode, 13? Because that would make sense, because Kitty's bad luck. Why? What's the 13th thing? What is the date? It's like the date that the Knights of Templar slaughtered a whole bunch of people or something. Of course, that's a bad day. Bad luck day. But that's not at all what I'm here to talk about. In fact, what I'm here to talk about today is how it is that I am working through the misfit nature of being me in a universe that I thought for the longest time was simply a misfit place for everybody. Instead of that, I just hadn't figured out how easy it was to reset and fit into the universe. So the last 3 years, I've worked a total of 10 and a half, 11 actually. 11, somewhere around 10 to 11 months. And the main break in that was because I had 2 episodes at my job at Kroger that were alarming. The first one was alarming. The second one isn't as alarming because at least I have a memory of the second one. The first one I still don't remember. And the first one I had helped somebody get a tree loaded outside during Christmas season. And then in walking in, a manager approached me, asked me something. A manager who was totally cool too, and I had a great relationship with. And I just freaked out and started yelling. And it's not apparent when I'm yelling, but it's clear that I'm raising my voice because you can see me bellowing in the video that they did show me. And so that episode got me on medical leave and sent me to a psychiatrist who put me on an antipsychotic called Risperidol, which meant I had to stop smoking weed, which meant that I had to see this guy regularly. I saw him for 6 weeks, every other week, and then I saw him a 7th time for an evaluation. But the point is, so over the course of 3 months, essentially, it turned into 4.5. I was evaluated by this medical team, and during this time, was supposed to be taking Risperidol for, I took it for the first, it was 5 or 6 weeks before I quit. And I quit because while at first it was okay, it got to the point where I felt like I was just, I could not concentrate on anything. All I could do was simple tasks. I could do dishes, for instance, but I couldn't decide what to put on a shopping list for dinner. And so there was some clarity at first, which I think might have just been getting away from weed that gets your kind of maybe day-to-day routines that have not gone as well, like how I haven't painted the bathroom for 6 years. Trust me, that isn't the weed. But it's, I don't know. I go back and forth on this stuff, but I took myself off of it because I thought it was awful. And I've been right ever since. And frankly, have been clear as a bell ever since, and think I was clear as a bell at the time for reasons that didn't involve actually the antipsychotic. And maybe the antipsychotic was some sort of catalyst or trigger that gave me an opportunity to recover some sort of brain connectivity that I had misplaced, mislaid, whatever. I don't know. I don't even care. And this is part of where I just feel reprogrammed, where I woke up 24 hours later, a different person. And I have 3 very distinct moments of feeling like that happened to me. This is one of them. And so after the 4.5 month evaluation, I thought that I was then cleared to go back to King Soopers whenever I wanted to. So I kept putting that off, and I kept putting that off because for whatever reason, I just couldn't face the idea of going back to work at that place. And I knew I should. I mean, of course I should. I was selling everything I had of value to just stay alive. So as I got to a point where I no longer, and during this time, I had the solar flare of Lily at her most maniacal, other than one other time, which goes back in history, but her most maniacal in the sense that she and I had conversations that were just giving me insight into who I am. And I have some of that recorded, and I won't share any of it without asking Lily if she'll participate. So maybe someday some of that will emerge. But for now, just know that that was critical to me. And I could not explain that to anybody. Nobody would understand that for whatever reason, I needed to drill into, as far as I could, the mind of the delusional schizophrenic so that I could realize how to wind back reality in a meaningful way for myself. And I think, though, for those who know me the best, I think most of them would say that it worked, because I feel like it worked. In fact, I feel like that wasn't a process of 2 delusional dipshits playing PlayStation until something meaningful occurred. I was constantly gaining more and more footing as I used both Lily's attacks and defenses to reorganize myself. So, like I said, I'm not sure she's not my guardian angel. I hope she's not. And I hope I'm not hers. But if I am, I'm up to the challenge. So, sorry about the sniffles. So the reason I thought there might be some blubbering on this little journey was because I know I wanted to say some things about if my mom's listening. There's a couple things I got to get out of the way, and I think she's going to listen to some of this stuff. And then if I were her, I'd turn it off. But I don't know if she has the ability to say no. However, there's nothing I'm doing anymore that I'm hiding behind. I want to be fully exposed to everything. There's no deceit I don't want to be duplicitous about anything. And I don't really have all that much to hide. I just realized how much I was hating myself to the point that I was allowing myself to be just about the least honorable version of myself that I could possibly imagine being. So the person who took the brunt of that is my mother. And when I say she took the brunt of it, I mean that when I was at my most deviant and when I was being my least, when I was also being my neediest, when I was so full of lies, I couldn't really even move forward in conversation in groups because it was hard to remember all of the different versions that I was sharing that didn't or might not be lining up in real time. There was just a ton of manipulation going on, and I was directly manipulating my family members. And I'll say this much. At some point, my sister just drew a sword and chopped my hand off and said enough. And At some other point, my father just left the room. And the only person who stuck by me, even in my most delusional state, and I'll explain what I mean by this in a second, but the only person who stuck by me without fail was my mother. And to the point that I'm sure she got criticism from both my father and my sister for being weak and manipulated and taken, because she was, by me. And I say that knowingly because in real time, I knew I was so desperate I couldn't admit what I was doing, but I had no other choice. And it was despicable. It's awful because it was all self-inflicted. It was never something that I couldn't have done better with, in every case. And while all that hurts, it just makes me feel in some ways like the true disappointment I never thought I should be. But I'm not so much disappointed in all of that as in this one thing. And that is, my mom never drew a line. She never said, that's enough. And in some ways, I always thought that was kind of weak. Whereas I always understood my sister's reaction. I never kind of really understood my mom's. Until recently, when I just had that moment of clarity where I was like, oh, I totally get it. You know? Because I asked everybody around me to give more than was fair. And then I asked them to give even more. And then I asked them to give themselves to me in a way that was delusional. And they knew it. And my mom, she never said no. You know, she was always there for me, even when I knew I was being terrible. And what it did is it forced her to choose between the reality that my father and my sister were adamant about staying inside of, and her son. I made her make that choice. It's such an unfair thing to have done. And I'm so shameful for having put you there. I never thought about it until recently, how hard that must have been. I just don't know what to say, except I'm sorry. I'm sorry I acted in a way that put you in a position to have to choose me versus them. And I know I did. I owe you so much. But boy, did I owe you better in the moment there. And I failed you. I failed them too, obviously, but I failed you the biggest because you gave me the most. Undeservedly, you gave me the most. You gave me your life. So, having gotten through that now, I want you to know, and now see how important it is to live the way that you raised me to live. And I had somewhat given up on believing in myself. I think you know this. But I no longer feel that way. I know I'm not going to fail. I know that I've for whatever reason, I've got only one thing left to do. And that's to never, ever be anything but me again. And in so doing, you know I'll always be there for you. Because I love you. And somehow I let go of that. So for that, I will always be ashamed. But you can, I think even you'll agree, for the first time, baby, you can count on me, Mom.